The cargo ship Horizon's Edge moved slowly through the dark space of the Vela corridor. It was an old ship, built for carrying supplies between human colonies, not for adventure or exploration. The metal walls were scratched and worn. The engines made a low humming sound that never stopped. For the 12 crew members aboard, this was just another boring trip through a region of space that made everyone nervous. Park Jae-won sat in the engineering bay, watching the power readings on his screen. He was 32 years old, with tired eyes and rough hands from years of fixing broken machines. He had joined this crew 5 years ago, after losing his job on Earth. Space work paid well, but it was lonely. Most days felt the same. Wake up, check the engines, eat tasteless food, sleep, repeat. His friend Lee Dong-ha walked in with 2 cups of coffee. Dong-ha was shorter than Jae-won, with a quick smile and a loud laugh. They had become close during their years working together on the ship. Another quiet night, Dong-ha said, handing Jae-won a cup. 3 more days until we reach the colony. I cannot wait to stand on solid ground again. Jae-won nodded but did not answer. He was looking at something strange on his screen. A small signal, very weak, coming from somewhere ahead of them. What is that? He asked, pointing. Dong-ha leaned closer. His smile disappeared. Probably nothing. Old satellites, space rocks, who knows? This corridor is full of junk. But Jae-won was not so sure. He switched to another screen and enhanced the signal. What he saw made his heart beat faster. It was not junk. It was debris from a destroyed ship. Pieces of metal floated in the darkness, spinning slowly. And among the pieces, there was something else. Something small and round. An escape pod. Jae-won stood up quickly. I need to talk to the captain. Captain Baek was an old woman with gray hair and a face like stone. She had been flying cargo ships for 40 years, and she did not like surprises. When Jae-won showed her what he had found, she shook her head. No, she said simply. We are not stopping. But there could be survivors, Jae-won argued. Someone could be alive in that pod. This is the Vela corridor, the captain replied. We are only allowed to pass through. We cannot stop. We cannot investigate. The Vela Dominion controls this space, and they do not like humans. If we interfere with anything here, they could destroy us. Jae-won knew she was right. The Vela Dominion was one of the oldest and most powerful alien empires in the galaxy. They barely tolerated humans. They certainly did not want humans touching their things. But he could not stop thinking about that escape pod. What if someone was inside, slowly dying, while they flew past? Captain, he said carefully, what if it is not an alien ship? What if it is one of ours? Captain Baek was quiet for a moment. That was the one thing she had not considered. Human ships sometimes disappeared in this corridor. No one ever knew what happened to them. She sighed heavily. Fine. We will take a quick look. But if there is any sign of trouble, we leave immediately. Understood? Jae-won nodded and ran back to prepare. The Horizon's Edge changed course and moved toward the debris field. As they got closer, everyone could see the damage more clearly. Whatever ship this had been, it had been torn apart violently. Burn marks covered the broken pieces. This was not an accident. This was an attack. Jae-won put on his spacesuit and went outside the ship with Dong-ha. They used small jetpacks to fly through the floating wreckage. The silence of space pressed against them. Jae-won could hear only his own breathing inside his helmet. The escape pod was damaged but intact. Its surface was covered in strange symbols that Jae-won did not recognize. This was not a human pod. This was alien technology. We should go back, Dong-ha said through the radio. This is not our problem. Dong-ha. Non-beable. Dong-ha. But Jae-won was already at the pod's door. He found the opening mechanism and pulled. The door slowly opened with a hiss of escaping air. Inside, he saw a child. She was small, maybe 8 years old if she had been human. But she was not human. Her skin was pale violet, almost glowing in the darkness. Her hair was silver and floated around her face like silk in water. She wore a white dress that was torn and stained with something dark. Blood, perhaps. Around her neck hung a golden pendant, with a symbol Jae-won had never seen before. She was barely breathing. "Dong-ha," Jae-won whispered. "Help me. Are you crazy?" Dong-ha replied. "She is an alien. A Vela alien. Do you know what they will do to us?" "If we take her, she is a child," Jae-won said. He did not wait for his friend to argue more. He carefully lifted the girl in his arms. She weighed almost nothing. Her body was cold, too cold. He held her close to his chest, hoping his warmth would help. They returned to the ship quickly. Captain Baek was furious when she saw what Jae-won had brought back. She shouted at him, calling him a fool, saying he had doomed them all. But Jae-won did not listen. He carried the girl to the medical bay and laid her on the bed. The ship's medical system was designed for humans, but Jae-won did his best. He cleaned her wounds. He wrapped her in warm blankets. He connected her to machines that measured her heartbeat, which was strange and slow but steady. All through the night, he sat beside her, watching her breathe. Dong-ha came once to tell him the captain had decided to continue their journey. They would reach the colony in 3 days. What happened after that, no one knew. "You should sleep," Dong-ha said. "I will stay," Jae-won replied. He did not know why he felt so strongly about this. Maybe it was because she was so small and helpless. Maybe it was because he had always wanted children, but never had the chance. Or maybe it was something simpler. In this cold and empty universe, doing nothing while someone died felt wrong. So he stayed. He talked to her, even though she could not hear. He told her about Earth, about the oceans and the mountains, about the food he missed and the family he had not seen in years. He told her that she was safe now, that he would not let anything hurt her. Outside the small window of the medical bay, the stars moved slowly past. The ship continued its journey, and somewhere in the darkness behind them, other ships were already searching for what Jae-won had found. The girl's eyes moved beneath her closed eyelids. Her fingers twitched slightly, and on her pendant, the strange symbol seemed to glow faintly in the dim light. Something had begun. Something that would change Jae-won's life forever. 2 days passed on the horizon's edge. The alien girl remained unconscious, but her condition improved slowly. Her breathing became stronger. Her skin, which had been cold like ice, grew warmer. The ship's medical machines showed readings that no one understood, but the numbers were getting better. Jae-won barely left her side. He slept in a chair next to her bed, ate his meals in the medical bay, and ignored the angry looks from the other crew members. They all thought he was foolish. They all thought he had put them in danger for nothing. Only Dong-ha still talked to him. His friend brought food and news from the rest of the ship. The captain had sent a message to the human authorities, asking what to do. No one had answered yet. They were still 2 days away from the colony. On the morning of the 3rd day, the girl opened her eyes. Jae-won was reading a book on his small tablet when he heard a soft sound. He looked up and saw her staring at him. Her eyes were large and round, the color of pale gold, with no visible pupils. They looked like twin moons shining in the dim light of the medical bay. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then the girl screamed. She jumped off the bed and ran to the corner of the room, pressing herself against the wall. She was shouting words that Jae-won could not understand. The ship's translator tried to process her language but only produced broken sounds and static. Jae-won raised his hands slowly, showing her that they were empty. "It is okay," he said in a calm voice. "You are safe. I will not hurt you." She kept screaming. Her small body was shaking with fear. She looked around the room wildly, searching for an escape, for a weapon, for anything. Jaewon did not move closer. He remembered how his mother used to calm frightened animals when he was a child. You did not chase them. You did not grab them. You just sat still and let them come to you. So he sat down on the floor, far away from her, and waited. Minutes passed. The girl's screaming slowly stopped. Her breathing was still fast, but she was watching him now, studying him with those strange golden eyes. She had never seen a human before, Jaewon realized. She had no idea what he was. He pointed to himself. Jaewon, he said clearly. My name is Jaewon. She did not respond. He tried again, touching his chest. Jaewon. Then he pointed to her and tilted his head, asking without words. The girl was silent for a long time. Then, very quietly, she spoke. The translator crackled and finally produced a word. Subin. Jaewon smiled gently. Subin. That is a beautiful name. She did not smile back. But something in her eyes changed. The fear was still there, but now there was also curiosity. Over the next several hours, Jaewon worked to build her trust. He brought her food from the ship's kitchen. Simple things like bread and fruit. At first, she refused to eat, pushing the food away with disgust. But hunger eventually won. She tried the bread carefully, made a face, and then ate the entire piece. He showed her pictures on his tablet. Images of Earth filled the screen. Blue oceans, green forests, tall mountains covered in white snow, cities with millions of lights, children playing in parks, dogs running on beaches. Subin watched everything with wide eyes. She had never seen a planet like this. Her home, Jaewon guessed, must look very different. She began to trust him more. She let him sit closer. She stopped flinching when he moved. And slowly, through broken words and hand gestures, they began to communicate. The ship's translator learned her language piece by piece. By the end of the day, it could understand simple sentences. Subin pointed to the pendant around her neck and said a word that the translator caught clearly. Mother. Jaewon's heart grew heavy. This child had a mother somewhere. A mother who was probably searching for her, desperately. He thought about what it must feel like to lose your child in the cold emptiness of space. We will find her, he promised Subin. We will find your mother. Subin looked at him with those golden eyes. She did not understand all his words, but she understood his tone. She understood that he meant what he said. That night, she drew pictures for him. The ship had a simple art program on one of the computers, and Subin used it to create images of her home. Jaewon watched as she drew tall spires made of crystal, reaching up toward a purple sky. She drew ships that looked like silver birds, elegant and beautiful. She drew a woman in flowing robes, with hair like starlight and eyes like moons. Her mother. Jaewon saved every picture. He did not know why, but he felt that they were important. The next morning, everything changed. Dong-ha burst into the medical bay with panic on his face. He pulled Jaewon to the bridge, where the entire crew had gathered. On the main screen, they could see 5 ships approaching fast. They were not human ships. They were not Vela Dominion ships either. They were something else, dark and angular, covered in weapons. They appeared 10 minutes ago, Captain Bake said grimly. They are demanding that we stop. Who are they? Jaewon asked. Rebels, the captain replied. Enemies of the Vela Dominion. They must have been the ones who destroyed the girl's ship. Jaewon felt ice in his stomach. What do they want? The captain looked at him with tired eyes. They want the girl. Jaewon. They want to use her against her people. Against her mother. Jaewon. Jaewon turned and looked back toward the medical bay. Subin was there. Alone, probably scared again. She had trusted him. She had told him her name. She had shown him pictures of her home. We cannot give her to them, he said. We have no choice, the captain replied. Those ships have enough firepower to destroy us 10 times over. If we refuse, everyone on this ship will die." The crew murmured in agreement. They were cargo workers, not soldiers. They had families waiting for them. They had lives they wanted to return to. Dong-ha put a hand on Jae-won's shoulder. "I know this is hard," he said softly, "but she is not our responsibility. She is not even human." Jae-won shook off his friend's hand. He walked back to the medical bay and found Soo-bin sitting on the bed, clutching her pendant tightly. She looked up at him as he entered. She could not understand the words she had heard over the ship's speakers, but she understood the fear in everyone's voices. "Are they coming for me?" she asked in her broken way. Jae-won knelt down in front of her. He looked into her golden eyes, so different from human eyes but filled with the same emotions. Fear, hope, trust. "No," he said firmly. "They will not take you. I promise." He did not know how he would keep that promise. He only knew that he had to try. Soo-bin reached out and took his hand. Her small fingers were thin and delicate, but her grip was strong. "Thank you," she whispered. Jae-won. In that moment, everything became simple. He was not a hero. He was not a soldier. He was just a man who fixed engines on an old cargo ship. But he would not let them take this child. Not while he was still breathing. He stood up and walked back to the bridge. The rebel ships were getting closer. Time was running out. "Captain," he said, "I have an idea." The bridge of the horizon's edge was filled with tension. Every crew member stared at the screen, watching the 5 rebel ships grow larger as they approached. Their weapons were already glowing, ready to fire. Captain Beck looked at Jae-won with doubt in her eyes. "You have an idea? We are a cargo ship. We have no weapons, no shields, nothing. What idea could possibly save us?" Jae-won pointed to the navigation map on the screen. A large area was marked in red, a warning zone that all ships avoided. "The broken field," he said. "We can fly through it." Everyone on the bridge went silent. The broken field was an asteroid belt, so dense and chaotic that no ship had ever passed through it safely. The rocks moved in unpredictable patterns, crashing into each other constantly. It was a death trap. "That is suicide," Dong-ha said. "No one survives the broken field. Normal ships cannot survive it," Jae-won agreed. "But we are small and slow. The rebels are big and fast. They cannot follow us through the narrow spaces between the asteroids. Their size will work against them." Captain Bake shook her head. "And what about us? We will be crushed like a bug." "Not if I control the ship manually," Jae-won replied. "I know this ship better than anyone. I have worked on every system, fixed every problem. I can feel how she moves. Give me control, and I will get us through." The captain stared at him for a long moment. Behind her, the crew whispered among themselves. Some thought he was crazy. Others thought he might be their only hope. The communication system crackled. A harsh voice filled the bridge, speaking in broken human language. "Human ship, you have something that belongs to us. Give us the child, and you may live. Refuse, and you will burn." Captain Bake looked at the screen, then at Jae-won. She was old and tired, but she was not a coward. She had never surrendered in her life. "All right," she said quietly. "Take us into the broken field, and may whatever God you believe in help us all." Jae-won ran to the pilot's chair and pushed the automatic systems aside. He grabbed the manual controls, feeling the weight of the ship respond to his hands. He had never flown the horizon's edge like this before. No one had. But there was no time for doubt. "Everyone, hold on," he announced over the ship's speakers. "This is going to be rough." He pushed the engines to full power and turned the ship toward the red zone on the map. Behind them, the rebel ships accelerated, trying to catch them before they reached the asteroids. The first laser blast hit their rear shields. The ship shook violently. Alarms screamed. Smoke began to fill the engineering section. "Shields at 60%, Dong Ha shouted from his station. Another blast hit them. Then another. "Shields at 40%. J1 did not slow down. The edge of the broken field was just ahead. A wall of spinning rocks that looked like the mouth of some giant monster. He aimed for a gap between two massive asteroids and pushed the ship through. Suddenly, they were inside. Rocks flew past them on every side. Some were as big as houses. Others were small and sharp, bouncing off the hull with sounds like gunshots. J1's hands moved constantly, adjusting course, avoiding collisions, finding paths that appeared and disappeared in seconds. Behind them, the rebel ships tried to follow. The first one entered the asteroid field confidently. It lasted about 30 seconds before a massive rock smashed into its side, tearing it apart. The second ship tried to go around, looking for an easier path. It found none. The other three ships stopped at the edge of the field, unable to follow. They fired their weapons blindly into the asteroids, hoping to hit the human ship by luck. But the rocks absorbed most of the blasts. Inside the horizon's edge, the situation was desperate. The ship was taking damage with every passing moment. Small asteroids punched holes in the outer hull. Systems failed, one by one. The lights flickered on and off, and then a sharp piece of rock broke through the bridge window. J1 felt pain explode in his shoulder. He looked down and saw blood spreading across his shirt. A fragment of metal had cut deep into his flesh. The pain was incredible, but he could not stop. If he stopped, they would all die. "J1!" Dong-ha screamed, running toward him. "Stay back," J1 ordered. "Keep the systems running. I need more power to the engines." Dong-ha hesitated, then ran to the engineering controls. His hands flew across the panels, redirecting every bit of energy he could find. Minutes felt like hours. J1 flew through spaces so tight that the ship scraped against rocks on both sides. He spun and twisted and dove, using every skill he had learned in 20 years of working with machines. Blood ran down his arm and dripped onto the controls, but he did not let go. Finally, impossibly, they emerged on the other side of the broken field. The rebel ships were gone, left far behind in the chaos of the asteroids. Ahead of them was clear space, dark and peaceful and beautiful. J1 let go of the controls and fell back in his chair. His vision was blurring. He had lost too much blood, but he was smiling. "We made it," he whispered. Dong-ha was at his side immediately, pressing bandages against his wound. "You crazy fool," he said, but there were tears in his eyes. "You actually did it." Captain Bake stood up slowly. She looked at the damage reports on her screen, then at J1 bleeding in the pilot's chair. For the first time since he had known her, she smiled. "I was wrong about you," she said. "You are not a fool. You are the bravest man I have ever met." J1 tried to respond, but darkness was closing in around him. The last thing he saw before he passed out was Subin, standing in the doorway of the bridge. She was crying, her golden eyes filled with tears that floated off her cheeks like tiny crystals. She ran to him and grabbed his hand, holding it tightly against her chest. "Do not leave me," she whispered in her broken words. He squeezed her hand weakly. "I am not going anywhere," he managed to say. "I promised." Then everything went black. When he woke up, he was in the medical bay, wrapped in bandages, connected to machines that beeped steadily. Subin was asleep in the chair beside him, still holding his hand. She had not let go. Dong-ha was there too, watching over both of them. "You slept for 16 hours, his friend said. "We are almost at the colony." The captain sent another message, telling them what happened. "They are sending ships to escort us the rest of the way." J1 nodded weakly. His shoulder hurt terribly, but he was alive. They were all alive. "Thank you," he said to Dong-ha, "for believing in me." Dong-ha shook his head. "I thought you were insane. I still think you are insane." But I am glad I was wrong about one thing. What is that? His friend smiled. I am glad I am your friend. Subin stirred in her sleep, her fingers tightening around Jaewon's hand. Whatever was coming next, they would face it together. The rebels were behind them. The colony was ahead. And somewhere out there in the vast darkness of space, a mother was searching for her daughter. Jaewon closed his eyes and let himself rest. He had kept his promise. Now, all he had to do was survive long enough to keep it again. The horizon's edge limped through space like a wounded animal. Half of its systems were broken. The hull was covered in holes and scratches from the asteroids. But it was still flying, still carrying its crew toward safety. The human colony was only 6 hours away. Escort ships had been sent to guide them through the final part of their journey. For the first time in days, the crew began to relax. The danger was behind them. Soon they would be home. Jaewon sat in the medical bay, his shoulder wrapped in clean bandages. The wound was healing slowly. But, the doctor said, he would be fine. Subin sat beside him, drawing pictures on the tablet he had given her. She had not left his side since he woke up. What are you drawing? He asked her gently. She turned the tablet to show him. It was a picture of two figures holding hands. One was tall, with dark hair. The other was small, with silver hair. Above them, she had drawn stars. You and me, she said in her improving human words. Friends. Jaewon felt warmth spread through his chest. This small alien child, alone and afraid, in a universe that wanted to hurt her, had decided to trust him. It was a gift more precious than anything he had ever received. Yes, he said, smiling. Friends. At that moment, every alarm on the ship began to scream. Jaewon jumped to his feet, ignoring the pain in his shoulder. He grabbed Subin's hand and ran toward the bridge. When he arrived, he found the entire crew staring at the main screen in shock. A ship had appeared out of nowhere. But calling it a ship did not seem right. It was more like a floating city, a massive structure made of crystal and light that stretched across the darkness of space. It was easily 100 times larger than the horizon's edge. Patterns of energy flowed across its surface, like rivers of starlight. Captain Baek was standing frozen, her face pale with fear. What is that? Dong-ha whispered. The communication system activated by itself. A voice filled the bridge, speaking in perfect human language. It was female, cold and powerful, like the voice of a goddess. Human vessel, you have taken something that belongs to me. You will return it immediately. Resistance is not possible. Subin's hand tightened around Jaewon's fingers. She was trembling. Mother, she whispered. Jaewon understood then. This was not just any Vela ship. This was the flagship of their empire. And the voice they had heard belonged to none other than the Empress herself. Before anyone could respond, light surrounded Jaewon. He felt his body become weightless, like he was floating in water. Subin screamed his name, but her voice grew distant. The last thing he saw was her reaching for him, her golden eyes wide with terror. Then he was somewhere else. He stood in a room made entirely of crystal. The walls glowed with soft blue light. The ceiling was so high that he could not see where it ended. Everything was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Chains appeared around his wrists, heavy and cold. Guards surrounded him, tall aliens with silver skin and black armor. They held weapons that hummed with deadly energy. And at the end of the room, sitting on a throne of pure light, was the Empress. She was the most beautiful and most frightening being Jaewon had ever seen. Her skin was pale violet, like Subin's, but it seemed to glow from within. Her hair was silver and flowed around her like a living thing. Her eyes were gold, ancient and cold, filled with intelligence that spanned centuries. She wore robes of white and silver that moved like water. Around her neck hung a pendant, identical to Subin's. When she spoke, her voice filled the entire room, without her raising it. So this is the human who dared to touch my daughter. Jae-won tried to stand tall despite the chains. I saved her, he said. She was dying in the wreckage of her ship. I only wanted to help. The Empress's expression did not change. Humans are not permitted to touch the royal bloodline. The punishment, according to our oldest laws, is death. The guards moved closer, their weapons rising. Wait, Jae-won shouted. I did not know who she was. I found a child in need, and I helped her. Is that truly a crime? Ignorance does not excuse the violation, the Empress replied. Our laws exist for reasons you cannot understand. The purity of the royal blood must be protected. You have contaminated my daughter with your human presence. Contaminated? Jae-won felt anger rising in his chest. She was alone and scared. She had not eaten for days. She cried herself to sleep every night. I held her hand and told her she was safe. If that is contamination, then your laws are wrong. The room went completely silent. No one had ever spoken to the Empress like this. The guards looked at each other in shock. Even the Empress seemed surprised, though she hid it quickly. You are bold, she said. Bold and foolish. Perhaps that is a human trait. Perhaps it is, Jae-won replied. But I would rather be bold and foolish than stand by while a child dies. The Empress raised her hand. The guards prepared to execute him, and then a small voice echoed through the chamber. Mother, no. Subin came running through a door that Jae-won had not noticed. She was crying, tears floating off her face like crystals. She threw herself between Jae-won and the guards, her small arms spread wide. Do not hurt him, she screamed. He saved me. He protected me. He is my friend. The Empress's cold expression cracked. For just a moment, Jae-won saw something human in her eyes. Love, fear, conflict. Subin, she said softly. Come to me. No. Subin shook her head. Not until you promise not to hurt him. Mother and daughter stared at each other. The entire room held its breath. Finally, the Empress lowered her hand. The guard stepped back. Tell me everything, she commanded. Tell me what happened since your ship was attacked. And Subin did. In her broken mix of languages, she told her mother about waking up on the strange human ship, about being afraid and alone, about the man who sat with her through the night, who showed her pictures of his world, who gave her food and warmth and kindness. She told her about the rebels who came to take her, and how Jae-won flew through impossible danger to protect her. She showed her mother the wound on his shoulder, the proof of his sacrifice. When she finished, the Empress was silent for a long time. You risked your life, she finally said to Jae-won. For a child you did not know, for a species that has shown your kind nothing but contempt. She was scared, Jae-won said simply. She needed help. That is all that mattered. The Empress looked at her daughter, then at the human in chains before her. She was faced with an impossible choice. The law demanded his death, but another law, older and more sacred, said that a life debt to the royal house. Her daughter's life now belonged to this human, and his life, whether he understood it or not, belonged to her. Remove the chains, she ordered. The guards obeyed. Jae-won rubbed his wrists, confused. You will not be executed, the Empress announced. But neither will you be released. By the ancient laws of our people, you have created a bond that cannot be broken. You saved the life of the heir to the Vela Dominion. From this day forward, you will serve as her guardian. You will remain in our realm until your death. Jae-won's heart sank. What about my ship? My crew? My home? They will be sent away with compensation for their troubles. You will never see them again. Subin grabbed Jae-won's hand, her small fingers wrapping around his. I am sorry, she whispered. I did not want this. I did not know. Jae-won looked down at her golden eyes, filled with guilt and sadness. He thought about Earth, about Dongha, about the life he was losing. The pain was real and deep, but he also looked at this small girl who had trusted him, who had defended him against her own mother. She needed him. In a way, she needed him more than anyone had ever needed him before. He squeezed her hand gently. "It is okay," he said. The Empress watched this exchange with unreadable eyes. Then she turned and walked toward a door behind her throne. "Take him to his quarters," she commanded. "His new life begins now." The room they gave J1 was beautiful. The walls were made of crystal that changed color with the light. The bed was soft and large, covered in fabrics that felt like clouds. A window stretched from floor to ceiling, showing the endless stars outside. By any measure, it was a palace room, fit for royalty. But the door locked from the outside. J1 sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor. 3 days since he had said goodbye to Dong-ha through a communication screen, watching his friend cry as the horizon's edge flew away forever. "I will find a way to get you out," Dong-ha had promised. "The human government will do something. They have to." But J1 knew the truth. Humans had no power here. The Vela Dominion was too strong, too ancient, too far beyond anything humanity could challenge. No rescue was coming. This was his life now. A soft knock came at the door. J1 did not answer, but the door opened anyway. Subin entered slowly, carrying a tray of food. "I brought you breakfast," she said quietly. "The kitchen made human food. I told them what you like." J1 looked at the tray. Bread, fruit, something that looked like eggs. It was a kind gesture, but he had no appetite. "Thank you," he said, "but I am not hungry." Subin set the tray down and sat beside him on the bed. She was quiet for a long moment. Her small hands folded in her lap. "You are sad," she finally said. "Because of me?" "No." J1 shook his head. "Not because of you. None of this is your fault. But if you had not saved me, you would still be free. You would be with your friend. You would be going home." J1 looked at her golden eyes, filled with guilt that no child should carry. He reached out and put a hand on her shoulder. "Listen to me," he said firmly. "I made a choice. I chose to save you because it was right. I do not regret it. I will never regret it. Do you understand?" Subin's eyes filled with tears. She threw her arms around him and buried her face in his chest. "I am sorry," she sobbed. He held her gently, letting her cry. Outside the window, stars drifted past, like distant dreams. Later that day, a visitor came to J1's room. It was a human woman, which surprised him greatly. She was tall, with sharp eyes and neat black hair. She wore formal clothes and carried herself with confidence. "My name is Han Mira," she said, bowing slightly. "I am a diplomat from the Human Coalition. I have been stationed on Vela Prime for 3 years." "A diplomat?" J1 stood up quickly. "Does that mean you can help me? Can you negotiate my release?" Mira's expression remained calm, but there was sadness in her eyes. "I have tried. I have spent the last 2 days arguing with every official who would listen. I even requested an audience with the Empress herself. And nothing." Mira sighed. "The Empress's word is absolute. Her laws are sacred. No amount of negotiation can change what she has decided." J1 felt hope die in his chest. "So that is it. I am trapped here. Forever." "I am sorry," Mira said. "Truly, I am. But I wanted you to know that you are not forgotten. The human government knows what happened. Your story has spread across our colonies. People are calling you a hero." "A hero," J1 laughed bitterly. "A hero trapped in a golden cage." Mira stepped closer. "I know this is hard, but you did something remarkable. You showed the Vela that humans are capable of compassion, of sacrifice, of love. In all my years here, I have never seen them look at a human the way they look at you." "How do they look at me?" With confusion, she admitted. And curiosity. And something else. Something I think might be respect. After Mira left, J1 thought about her words. Respect. It seemed impossible. The Vela had always viewed humans as lesser beings, primitive creatures barely worth noticing. But maybe, just maybe, he had changed something. Even if only a little. Days turned into weeks. J1 slowly adjusted to his new life. He was allowed to leave his room during the day, though guards followed him everywhere. He explored the massive ship, marveling at technology that seemed like magic. He ate strange foods and learned strange customs, and always, Subin was with him. She became his constant companion, his guide to this alien world. She taught him the Vela language, correcting his pronunciation with endless patience. She showed him the gardens where crystal flowers grew without soil. She introduced him to her tutors, her servants, her few friends among the nobility. Through her, he began to understand the Vela people. They were not monsters. They were simply different. Their emotions ran deeper and lasted longer than human feelings. Their lives stretched across centuries. Their culture valued tradition and order above all else. And their love for family was fierce beyond anything J1 had ever seen. One evening, Subin took him to a special room deep within the ship. It was a memorial hall, filled with portraits of her ancestors. Hundreds of faces looked down from the crystal walls, each one a ruler who had come before. "My father is here," Subin said softly, pointing to a portrait near the end of the line. "He died when I was very small. I barely remember him." J1 looked at the portrait. The man had Subin's eyes, warm and kind despite the formal pose. "I am sorry," he said. "Mother changed after he died," Subin continued. "She became cold, distant. She says it is because she must be strong for our people. But I think it is because she is afraid to love again. She is afraid to lose anyone else." J1 thought about the Empress, about the ice in her eyes when she had sentenced him to this life. He had assumed it was cruelty. Now he wondered if it was something else. Protection. Fear. A wall built to keep pain away. "Your mother loves you very much," he said. "I could see it when she looked at you." "I know," Subin replied. "But sometimes love is not enough. Sometimes people need to learn how to show it." That night, J1 lay awake thinking about everything Subin had said. The Empress was not his enemy. She was a mother who had lost her husband, who had almost lost her daughter, who ruled an empire while carrying grief she could not express. He did not forgive her for trapping him here. But he began to understand her. And understanding, he realized, was the first step toward something more. The next morning, he asked the guards to deliver a message to the Empress. He wanted to speak with her. Not to beg for release. Not to argue about laws. He simply wanted to talk. The guards looked surprised, but they agreed to deliver the message. 2 days later, a response came. The Empress would see him in her private garden. Alone. As J1 walked toward the meeting, his heart beat fast with uncertainty. He did not know what he would say. He did not know what she would say. But for the first time since arriving in this strange place, he felt something other than despair. He felt hope. Maybe he could not change his situation. Maybe he would never go home. But maybe, just maybe, he could build something meaningful in this new life. A connection. A purpose. A family different from anything he had imagined. The garden doors opened before him, revealing a world of crystal and light. And there, standing among flowers that sparkled like stars, the Empress waited. The garden was the most beautiful place J1 had ever seen. Crystal trees rose toward a ceiling that showed the stars. Flowers of every color grew from beds of glowing stone. A small stream of silver water wound through the paths, making soft music as it flowed. The Empress stood near a fountain at the center of the garden. Without her throne and her guards, she looked smaller somehow. Still powerful, still ancient, but more like a person, and less like a goddess. "You asked to see me," she said as J1 approached. That was unexpected. Most prisoners do not request audiences with their captors. "I am not most prisoners," J1 replied. "And with respect, I do not think of you as my captor." The Empress raised an eyebrow. "Then what am I?" "Subin's mother." J1 stopped a few feet away from her. "A ruler, trying to protect her people. A woman who lost her husband, and almost lost her daughter. Someone carrying more weight than anyone should carry alone." For a long moment, the Empress said nothing. Her golden eyes studied him like she was reading a book in a language she did not fully understand. "You are strange," she finally said. "I have lived for over 800 years. I have met countless beings from across the galaxy, but I have never met anyone quite like you. Is that good or bad?" "I have not decided yet." She turned and began walking along one of the garden paths. After a moment, she gestured for J1 to follow. They walked in silence for a while, surrounded by the soft light of crystal flowers. "Subin speaks of you constantly," the Empress said. "She tells me stories about your world. Oceans that cover entire planets. Creatures that swim through water, like birds fly through air. Mountains made of ice. It sounds like a fairy tale." "It is real," J1 said. "Earth is beautiful. Different from this, but beautiful in its own way. Do you miss it?" The question surprised him with its gentleness. "Yes," he admitted. "Every day." The Empress nodded slowly. "I understand missing a home. My own world was destroyed in a war before Subin was born. This ship, this fleet, is all that remains of our civilization. We have been wandering the stars for 3 centuries, searching for a new place to belong." J1 had not known this. He had assumed the Vela were powerful conquerors, not refugees carrying the memory of a lost world. "I am sorry," he said. "That must be very hard. It is what it is." The Empress's voice was flat, but J1 could hear pain beneath the surface. "We survive. We continue. That is all anyone can do. We continue time. We continue perseverance. We continue time." They reached a small clearing, where a bench sat beneath a crystal tree. The Empress sat down, and J1 sat beside her. For a moment, they were just 2 people resting in a garden, not an Empress and a prisoner. "Why did you really ask to see me?" she asked. J1 thought carefully before answering. "I wanted you to know that I do not hate you. I understand why you made your decision. Your laws exist to protect your people, your daughter, your way of life. I may not agree with everything, but I understand. That is very generous of you. It is not generosity, it is just the truth." He paused. "But I also wanted you to know something else. I will not spend my life here, feeling sorry for myself. If I must stay, then I will make this place my home. I will protect Subin with everything I have, not because your law commands it, but because I care about her." The Empress turned to look at him directly. Her eyes searched his face for lies or hidden motives. She found none. "You truly mean that?" she said slowly. "I do." Something changed in her expression. The ice that had been there since their first meeting began to melt. Just a little. "Perhaps," she said quietly, "I underestimated humans." Months passed after that conversation. J1's life in the Vela Dominion slowly transformed from imprisonment to something else. He was given better quarters, more freedom, more respect. The guards who followed him became less like jailers and more like companions. Servants who had ignored him began to bow when he passed. And Subin flourished. With J1 by her side, she became happier than she had been in years. She laughed more, studied harder, and began to show the qualities of a true leader. Her tutors remarked on the change. Even the noble families who had once looked down on the human in their midst began to whisper words of approval. J1 taught her about humanity. He told her stories about Earth, about its history and its heroes, about the struggles and triumphs of his people. He taught her human games, human songs, human ways of thinking. In return, she taught him everything about the Vela. He learned their language fluently. He memorized their customs and protocols. He studied their history, their art, their science. He became, in many ways, more Vela than human, but he never forgot where he came from, and he never stopped being himself. One night, everything changed. J1 was asleep in his quarters when a sound woke him. It was soft, barely more than a whisper, but his instincts screamed danger. He rolled off the bed just as a blade sliced through the space where his head had been. Assassins. 3 of them. Dressed in black, their faces hidden behind masks. J1 had no weapons, no training, nothing but his bare hands. But he had something the assassins did not expect. Years of hard work on ships had made him strong. Fear for Subin made him desperate. The first assassin lunged at him. J1 grabbed the attacker's arm and twisted, hearing bones snap. He took the fallen blade and spun to face the other 2. They were faster than him, more skilled. One of them cut his arm. Another kicked him to the ground. But J1 kept fighting, kept struggling, kept refusing to fall. His only thought was Subin. He screamed for the guards as he fought. He threw furniture, blocked blades with his bleeding hands, did everything he could to buy time. When the guards finally arrived, J1 had killed one assassin and was holding another at bay. His body was covered in cuts. Blood pooled beneath him on the crystal floor, but he was still standing. The guards captured the surviving assassins. Medical teams rushed in. Someone was shouting orders. The last thing J1 saw before he collapsed was Subin running toward him, her face twisted with terror and love. "Uncle," she screamed. It was the first time she had called him that. "Uncle, please, stay with me. Stay with me." He wanted to tell her it was okay. He wanted to tell her he would always protect her. But darkness was pulling him under, and his words would not come. When he woke up, he was in the medical bay. His wounds had been treated with technology far beyond anything on Earth. The pain was dull, distant, controlled, and sitting beside his bed, watching him with eyes that held no ice at all, was the Empress. "You almost died," she said softly. "You almost died. Protecting my daughter. Is she safe?" J1's voice was weak. "She is safe. Because of you. Our call." "Reader." The Empress reached out and took his hand. Her touch was gentle, almost tender. "I have watched you for months," she continued. "I have seen how you treat Subin, how you laugh with her, teach her, care for her. I have seen the person you are, Park J1. And I was wrong about you. I was wrong about many things." And J1 did not know what to say. "Rest now," the Empress said, standing. "We will talk more when you are stronger." She walked toward the door, then stopped and looked back at him. "Thank you," she said, "for saving my daughter." Again. Then she was gone, leaving J1 alone with the beeping machines and the distant stars. He closed his eyes and smiled, despite his pain. For the first time since arriving in this strange place, he felt like he truly belonged. 3 weeks passed since the assassination attempt. J1 healed slowly but completely. The Vela medical technology was remarkable, leaving almost no scars despite the severity of his wounds. Only a thin line on his arm remained, a reminder of the night he had nearly died. The assassins had been members of the same rebel faction that had attacked Subin's ship. They had infiltrated the palace through bribery and patience, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Their goal had been to kill the heir and destabilize the Dominion. They had failed because of one human who refused to let them succeed. The story spread quickly, throughout the fleet, among the noble families, even to distant star systems. Everyone heard about the human guardian who had fought assassins with his bare hands to protect the princess. Some were shocked, Others were impressed. A few began to change their views about humanity entirely, but Jae-won did not care about his new fame. He cared only about Subin, about making sure she was safe and happy, about being the family she needed. Then came the summons. The Empress requested his presence in the throne room. Not the private garden where they had talked before, but the official throne room where matters of great importance were decided. When Jae-won arrived, he found the room filled with Vela nobility, all watching him with curious eyes. Subin stood near the throne, wearing formal robes that made her look older than her years. She smiled when she saw him, but there was nervousness in her expression. The Empress sat on her throne of light, magnificent and powerful. But when she looked at Jae-won, her eyes were warm. "Park Jae-won," she announced in a voice that filled the room. "Step forward." He walked through the crowd until he stood before the throne. Every eye in the room was fixed on him. He felt their judgment, their curiosity, their doubt. But he stood tall and met the Empress's gaze without fear. "You came to us as a stranger," she continued. "A human from a distant world, bound by laws you did not understand. For over a year, you have lived among us. You have learned our ways, earned our respect, and protected our future with your own blood." She paused, letting her words settle over the crowd. "The debt between us was paid long ago. You have saved my daughter not once, but twice. You have shown courage, wisdom, and compassion that would honor any Vela warrior. And so I offer you what I have never offered to any outsider in our long history." The Empress raised her hand, and silence fell absolutely. "I offer you your freedom." Whispers erupted throughout the room. This was unprecedented. The law was clear. No outsider who had touched the royal bloodline could ever leave. For the Empress to change this was nothing short of revolutionary. "If you wish," she continued, "I will return you to human space. You will be given wealth enough to live comfortably for the rest of your life. You will be given a ship of your own to travel wherever you desire. You will be free to go home, to see your world again, to live among your own kind." Jae-won's heart pounded in his chest. Home, Earth, the oceans and mountains and forests he had dreamed about every night. Dongha, probably still waiting, still hoping. Everything he had lost could be returned to him. All he had to do was say yes. He looked at Subin. She was trying to be brave, trying to be strong, but he could see the tears building in her golden eyes. She would not ask him to stay. She loved him too much to trap him here. But the thought of losing him was breaking her heart. He thought about his year in this strange place. The fear of the early days, the slow building of trust, the lessons and laughter, the nights when Subin had nightmares and came to his room, and he had held her until she fell asleep again. The mornings in the garden, learning about flowers that grew in crystal soil, the evenings watching stars drift past, talking about everything and nothing. He thought about the Empress, how she had been ice when they met, and warmth now, how she had watched him with suspicion, and then gratitude, and then something that might have been affection, how she had sat by his bed while he healed, not as an empress, but as a mother thanking the man who had saved her child. He thought about what family meant. He had always believed family was blood, was shared history, was people who looked and talked and thought like you. But maybe that was wrong. Maybe family was something you chose. Maybe family was the people who needed you, and who you needed in return. Jae-won took a deep breath. Then he did something that shocked everyone in the room, including himself. He knelt before the Empress. "Your Majesty," he said clearly, "I am honored by your offer. The chance to go home, to see Earth again, is more than I ever expected. But I must respectfully decline." The whispers grew louder. Even the Empress looked surprised. "I came here as a prisoner," Jae-won continued. "But I do not feel like a prisoner anymore. I feel like I belong here. Subin is not just a child. I am ordered to protect. She is my family, and I do not want to leave my family." He looked up at the Empress and met her eyes directly. "I ask permission to stay. Not as a servant, not as a prisoner, but as what I have become, as Subin's guardian, as a member of your household, as someone who wants to spend his life here, by choice, not by law." The throne room was completely silent. No one moved. No one breathed. Then Subin broke free from the servants, holding her back, and ran down the steps. She threw herself into Jaewon's arms, sobbing with joy. "Uncle," she cried, "you are staying. You are really staying." "I am staying," he said, holding her tight. "I am not going anywhere." He looked up and saw the Empress watching them. And then something happened that no human had ever witnessed in the 8 centuries of her reign. She smiled. It was a small smile, gentle and real, transforming her face from cold beauty to something warmer, something almost human. She descended from her throne and walked toward them, her robes flowing like water around her. She placed a hand on Subin's head and another on Jaewon's shoulder. "Then it is decided," she said softly. "From this day forward, Park Jaewon is not a prisoner or a servant. He is a member of the royal household. He is family." The noble families in the room bowed deeply. Whatever doubts they had held were gone. The Empress had spoken. The human had been accepted. That evening, Jaewon walked through the crystal garden with Subin on his shoulders. She pointed at ships, taking off in the distance, heading towards stars they would never reach. "Where do you think they are going?" she asked. "I do not know," Jaewon replied. "Maybe they are going home. Maybe they are looking for adventure. Maybe they are just searching for a place to belong." "Like you were?" He smiled. "Like I was. But I do not need to search anymore." Subin rested her chin on top of his head. "I love you, uncle." "I love you too, Subin." High above them, on a balcony of crystal and light, the Empress watched. She had ruled her people for 800 years. She had seen empires rise and fall, stars burn and die, entire civilizations disappear into the darkness of history. She had lost her world, her husband, and nearly her daughter. She had built walls around her heart so high that nothing could reach her. And yet this simple human, this ordinary man from an ordinary world, had found a way through. She watched him carry her daughter through the garden, their laughter drifting up toward her like music. And for the first time in centuries, she felt something she had forgotten was possible. Hope. Hope for her daughter's future. Hope for her people's journey. Hope that perhaps, in this vast and cold universe, warmth could still be found in the most unexpected places. Below, Jaewon set Subin down, and they sat together on a bench, watching the stars. He did not know what the future would bring. He did not know if he would ever see Earth again, or if humanity and the Vela would ever truly understand each other. But he knew one thing for certain. He had saved a life, and in doing so, had found a new one. And that, he thought, was enough. The stars drifted past, endless and eternal. And somewhere in the darkness between them, a new story was just beginning.